Okay, I think this is what I'm going to talk about today. Greetings, R. Frederick Riddle here, and this is Christian News and Views, episode 102. Amazing. Anyhow, we are now looking at the news, and today we're revisiting um, the Ukraine, and in particular, we're revisiting a talk that President Trump, another talk, I believe this is the second one, that Trump has had by phone with Putin. And it's the title of the article is Putin pivoted away from Ukraine talk with Trump. So they had a rather long talk, over more than 2 hours. So that's always good when people can sit down and talk. And the conversation gave Putin a chance to pivot away from the war in Ukraine and engage more broadly about global issues, drawing a line under Washington's past efforts to cast him as an international pariah. Really, you don't need to have the effort there. It's kind of understood, but stick with the news here for a minute. This took place on Tuesday. Tuesday's phone call appeared to reflect both leaders' interest in mending the U.S.-Russian ties that have plummeted to their lowest point since the Cold War amid the 3-year-old conflict in Ukraine. Now here's some, I'm going to not read the whole article, but portions of it. So, seeking to cultivate warm ties with Washington, Putin accepted a halt on strikes on energy infrastructure while avoiding an outright rejection of Trump's 30-day ceasefire. The Kremlin leader linked it to a halt in Western arms supplies and a freeze on Kiev's mobilization effort, conditions that Ukraine and its allies firmly reject. Another portion here, Ukraine is on the verge of completely losing its foothold in Russia's Kursk region, where its forces are clinging to a sliver of land along the border after their surprise incursion in August of 2024. Russia's offensive shattered Kiev's hopes of exchanging its gains in Kursk for some of the territory Moscow captured elsewhere in Ukraine. By making the ceasefire conditional on a freeze of arms supplies to Ukraine and its mobilization effort, Putin is trying to cement Russian gains and force Kiev to cave in to Moscow's demands. He wants Ukraine to withdraw its forces from the 4 regions that Russia illegally annexed but never fully captured, renounce its bid to join NATO, and radically trim its military. So here's my take on it, my opinion, if you will. First of all, the fact that they are talking, that is always good news. If you can, as long as you can talk with one another, instead of drawing more blood, or even while you are drawing more blood, if you're at least talking to one another, there's a hope of somehow reaching a conclusion that is acceptable to all parties. And so this is what Trump is doing. Trump is engaging Putin and allowing Putin to express himself, allowing Putin to put his case out there, if you will. Now, some of the things that he doesn't like are pre-Trump, the post first term and pre-new term. But anyhow, Putin has earned the title of international pariah, and he's not. Trump might allow some of that to surface and seem to agree with it, but whether he agrees with it or not won't matter. History has a way of recording things, and it will stand. There's no way he can sugarcoat what he has done. You got to understand something. Putin himself didn't have to pull a single trigger. He didn't have to pick up a gun and fire a single bullet. He didn't have to grab a woman and rape her. He didn't have to kill children in a school. He didn't have to do any of that with his own hands. He represents all of that because he's the head of the nation, and he authorized his troops to go in and did not control them, did not hold them back, or any of that. So he is responsible. Just like Hitler was responsible for everything that happened under his rule, then Putin is responsible for everything that happens under him. And I think he understands that. He just doesn't like it. um, so he won't get whitewashed. It really, I mean, even if Trump was to agree with everything he said, and I don't think that's going to happen, but even if he did, it would not change the ultimate historical outcome. Um, and I'm confident in that. So, where is this thing going? Let's take a look at some of this. So, according to the article here, um, he accepted the halt on strikes on energy infrastructure, and that has apparently taken place. And I haven't seen anything so far that he's violated that. So that helps the Ukraine take some of the pressure off of them. But he's still fighting on the ground and in the Kursk region. Now the Kursk region is part of Russia, and my guess is that Ukraine has choices where to put their forces, where to defend, and so forth. They wanted to use Kursk as a bargaining chip, and for a while it was, but now it looks like that's diminished, or at least diminishing. And they may have a, excuse me, they may be able to go in there and push the Russians back again. Anything can happen. The Ukrainians don't, they're not like some fighters who telegraph their next move. Ukraine, as both Ukraine and Russia have exercised surprise. And so Ukraine can surprise them. We have started sending weapons and stuff to Ukraine, and apparently we're trying to get them there in a more efficient time frame. And that has been my number one issue with Biden on the Ukraine war, is that he authorized things, but did not. He only was looking to, in my opinion, he was only looking to have a stalemate. He did not really. He was never really committed to victory. Trump sees this a little bit differently, and this is my theory. He didn't talk to me. I don't have a phone call with him, but this is my take on it. Trump understands that to be able to have a good bluff, you have to demonstrate that you have something behind that bluff. And so sending the weapons to Ukraine and getting them there in time uh, is a strong, strong message to Putin. Trump's not going to be a pushover. Now, Trump's never been a pushover, but Putin may have to be reminded, because it's been 4 years since he's had to deal with him before. And when time goes by, your mind tends to forget on things you don't like, and just remember the things you like. See, just like anybody else. And so Trump has to remind him, hey, this is what I am doing, and now I am doing now, but I can do this and more. So it's best for you to agree, and basically what Trump is going to try to do, I believe, is get Putin to lessen his demands, get more reasonable. If Putin lowers his stance, lowers his demands, then Zelensky in the Ukraine will feel freer to accept more. And the idea is they come to a point where the two sides can come together, sit down at a table, and look one another in the eye and make some kind of an agreement. So this is something that is going on over there. He wants get his issues out there, and they're getting out there. But he's going to have to deal with some reality checks. And if Trump's going to provide them, and he can also point, look at, well, even if I back out of NATO and get and out of the Ukraine, you're still going to have to deal with the European Union, And without us there, they're still stronger than you are, which is, by the way, a fact. So that is something that Putin has to take into consideration. He has to have a reality check. And the best way for that to happen is for Trump to communicate things to him on an even basis, to look him in the eye. And there might be some things going on in the background with his, and the details of the U.S. position and the Russian position, and for that matter, the Ukraine position, would be taking place in the background, not visible to those of us up front on a visible platform. And so, but then that filters to the leaders, and they're able to sit down and make an agreement that's already probably basically been agreed to. It's just a matter of signing. It's sort of like the agreement with Ukraine about the rare minerals. That was all set to go, and then they had to blow up in the White House, and then that delayed things. And I don't know if they've signed the new agreement now or not, but back in back on the table again, and things of that nature are moving forward. And Ukraine, in the meantime, has moved a little bit closer to accepting certain things. Now, getting back to Kursk, I think that the Ukraine, they're not in desire of that land whatsoever, and so their commitment to hold that land is, like I said, subject to maybe strategy and stuff like that. But as far as putting their forces at risk to defend it, I think that they will pull back. In that case, they have other areas where Russia has been pushing, and those troops are needed there. Remember what I've said in the past. The Ukrainians have to be mobile. They have to be able to move their forces from one area to another to protect against these different feints that the Russians use. And the Russians keep moving, and then until they find a weak spot, and then that's where they will pursue. Then the Ukrainians come in, push them back, and maybe never. And what happens is they may not always push them all the way back, but most of the way. Well, that's still a gain for the Russians. And so Ukraine benefits when they have the weapons in time. And they have received some of our weapons already since Trump's taken office. And so things are looking up there. Also, the European Union, don't forget them, they're there, and they've upped their game, so to speak, and have committed more to Ukraine and are providing more help in there and guidance and so forth. And by the way, the United States is providing intelligence, all the intelligence, not just defensive but offensive as well. So it says here that the Ukraine is on the verge of completely losing its foothold in Russia's Kursk region, and they may or may not decide to hold that. That's something that only they can decide. No one can decide it for them. I'm thinking that if it puts their forces at risk, I'm thinking they're not going to do that. They'll back out. Maybe come back at a later time. No one was expecting them to do it in the first place. By making the ceasefire conditional on a freeze of arms supplies to Ukraine and its mobilization effort, Putin is trying to cement Russia's gains. Well, his gains in Kursk are something that's something that, like I said, strategically speaking, Ukraine can say, okay, you can have your area back. And that pulls their forces back, however many they have over there, and makes them available elsewhere. So that helps them strengthen their internal area. The temporary closing of or the shutting down of the aerial bombardment, that is also helpful, and it gives both sides a pause, a chance to get stronger. But since there's still a war going on the ground, there's not a real pause. It's just an aerial pause. But that helps Ukraine actually more than it helps Russia. Russia doing it because that helps Putin with Trump. And so that is something that he needs to do. And while that's going on, Ukraine now can do some other things that they may not have been able to do before, like moving forces and stuff like that. And and also the I don't know what they're doing as far as rebuilding their own air force. Uh, they've suffered some damage there because some of their planes have been destroyed on the ground. But then again, Russia's planes have been destroyed on the ground by drones and so forth. So we can't eliminate the idea of the drones. The drones are something that Ukraine, I think Ukraine was the first one to start using them. Now both sides use them, but you can go to the Walmart probably and buy a small drone, and that's basically what they're doing. I think they get a lot of them from Australia, but they get these drones, the little bitty things. They put, well, they do more than a stick of dynamite, mind you, but they put some kind of explosive on them, fly them in, and blow up. And they can do a lot of damage, and that's what they're doing. It's psychological to some degree, but it's also, in some places, it's been actually physical damage that at least temporarily becomes an inconvenience at the very least, and could be any more serious than that in some cases. So, and I believe they're building up their own supply of drones. They're just sending a ton of them into Russia. Sort of like a Christmas gift, you might think, an early Christmas gift, that they send all these drones over to them. But I don't think the Russians appreciate it. But anyhow, Putin wants Ukraine to withdraw its forces from the 4 regions that Russia illegally annexed but never fully captured. So this is something that's I don't believe that the Trump or the European Union will agree to that. Those belong to Ukraine, not to Russia. And so there's a lot of things that have to be negotiated with. And what I'm really getting at, I think, is that this fact that they got talking about all sorts of other things, the Middle East, global security, even even talked about hockey. The fact that they backed away from the Ukraine a little bit, that's not necessarily bad news. That gives all the parties a chance to think through things and prepare for the next step. And so I think this is a good pause. I'd be more concerned if it was a rush to an agreement, but taking their time and working things out and involving, from what I've been able to discern, while on the surface it's just Trump to Putin, Trump is negotiating and working with his allies. Putin was working with his allies, with China and North Korea. And so these are things which are in the background taking place, and they need time to bear some fruit. Just hopefully this will bear some good fruit to be picked and digested. And so I'm thinking that this is a good pause, and that it will result in a more reasonable conversation going forward. And so I'm not discouraged by this at all. I'm actually encouraged by it because it just gives me a sense of how Trump is doing things, and what to look forward to going into the future. So that's my take for today. I do hope you enjoy my take on these things, and that you actually enjoy the news, hearing my take, and are able to take it and use it for your own. You're free to agree with me, disagree with. You can comment. I do provide you that avenue, and I do check them, and I may or may not respond to them there. Sometimes what I'm doing is I'm thinking about it, saying, well, maybe I'll respond to that in a future video. But the thing is, you have the opportunity to comment one way or another. And I encourage you to do so. So, well, you're right here. You have the opportunity to um, follow me, uh, to subscribe to my channel, TR Independent Books. To subscribe to that channel, and when you do so, you get the Christian news and views, which you're watching right now, and you get Becoming a Published Author is Fun, which is a free to you service where I give out advice. I'm a author, a publisher, a teacher, and a coach, and you get all that for free right there in Becoming a Published Author is Fun. I share free advice that you can use now or in the near future. You may have to pay somebody else for it, but you don't pay me a cent. And when you do that, you encourage me because your subscriptions are something that I value. And so when I see that out there, I look at it and I say, okay, that encourages me to inform you, to encourage you, and to inspire you. Whether it's Christian news and views or whether it's becoming a published author is fun. In either case, I want to do those things for you. And so that is my commitment to you. And I try to do that every time I have one of these episodes. So I hope you've enjoyed it today, and I will see you in the next episode.